At Citizen Action Illinois, we say there are three kinds of people. There are people that make things happen, there are people that watch things happen, and then there are people that don't know what's happening. I can't think of any place else in the world I would rather be on a Thursday morning than right here in River Forest, Illinois, in a room full of citizens in action, people who are not just content to spectate or speculate or postulate or pontificate about life, but people who are active participants in the movement for social justice and social change. I truly believe, because you all are gathered here today, that our state economy will be stronger, our state's people will be served better, and everybody in the state will have a higher quality of life because of the work that the Lutheran Child and Family Services of Illinois has done, is doing, but most important of all, what you all are getting ready to do. And because we advocates and activists are often inundated and underappreciated and undercompensated and seldom celebrated, why don't y'all do me a favor? It's early, I had a long drive and I'm trying to wake up. Why don't y'all celebrate yourself with a great big round of applause? All of the speakers and the panelists and presenters who have spoke before me and to those who will follow me, let me thank you for giving our heads good information. Let me thank you for giving our hearts good inspiration. And let me thank you for giving our feet good instruction. Having me speak at a meeting like this is never a 50-50 proposition. I guarantee you, I will receive more wisdom and inspiration than I can possibly give. So with that disclaimer, and with my sincere apologies to Kanye West, let me tell you, like Kim Kardashian told her first husband, I won't keep you long. It's so bad. Let me be time disciplined on my subject, the fight for economic justice. Subtitle, we all do better when we all do better. You know, income inequality is not automatic. It's policy driven and it's politically driven. And it won't be solved by platitudes alone. Oh, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, yeah. Well, that doesn't mean as much if private corporations own the rights to build an oil pipeline through the fishing water. Yes, we must provide the necessary human services to those in need, but we ultimately must empower our clients, the people that we serve every day, to fight for themselves. Everyone does not have equal ability, but everybody deserves an equal access to social and political and economic power. And let's not shy away from the word power. Dr. King described power in this way. He said, power is the ability to achieve purpose. It's the strength required to bring about social, political, or economic changes. Power is not only desirable, but necessary to implement the demands of love and justice. So this is a fight for a just society. And thus we must teach our people to stop begging for mercy and start demanding justice. Yes, we need to train more entrepreneurs. We need to teach people job skills. We need education to teach people how to take advantage of new technologies. But we can't just tell people who have not benefited from the globalization and the benefits of that to try harder. We must challenge those public policies that were enacted to keep wealth in the hands of a few while driving down wages at the bottom. And so we must enact policies that correct this injustice. We should move from advocacy to activism. So let me propose we do this in three ways. Number one, we must fight for public policy changes that correct economic injustice. Number two, we must strengthen our movement for democracy that shifts political power away from the few to the many. And finally, Martin Luther King's last book he wrote was called Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? So finally, I suggest and propose that we choose community. Number one, fighting for public policy change to correct economic injustice. You know Illinois is going through a fiscal crisis. Here's the question. Should the Illinois Constitution be amended to require that each school district receive additional revenue based upon the number of students from an additional 3% tax on income greater than $1 million? When voters were asked this question on the ballot in November 4th, 2 years ago, well over 60% of the voters said yes. So we need a fair, responsible budget with adequate revenues, not only to fund education and human services and health care, public safety, and other shared priorities. And since revenue should be part of the solution, it makes sense to raise it from those who can best afford to pay. Indeed, we could tax those who benefited the most when the income tax was recently rolled back from 5% to 3.75%. So the big tax increase that we got applauded for got rolled away 2 years ago, which goes to show you that once you fight to get something, you also have to fight to make sure you keep it. It's an ongoing struggle. According to the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability, when we rolled back this tax increase, millionaires received an average tax fund of $37,000. That's 70 times the $526 that those who had incomes of $35,000 to $50,000. That's 99 times the $372 that went to those with incomes of $25,000 to $35,000. And that's 344 times the $107 that went to those with incomes of $25,000 or less. Governor Rauner reportedly received a tax refund of $750,000. So not only did we blow a $5 billion hole in the budget, we threatened devastating cuts to human services and schools and healthcare and public safety and other shared priorities, and we have given a massive windfall to those who need it the least while defunding public services for those who need it the most. Not only did we give money to the people who are less likely to spend it, we have worsened the already serious problem of income inequality. Now some, including this governor, is quick to point the blame for our state's fiscal woes on labor unions. He proposes what we call a turnaround agenda, but just let me be clear, attacking the middle class will not produce prosperity. As a matter of fact, collective bargaining lifts all working families. Did you know that states with more union members, they have a higher standard of living? Everybody in the state makes more money. Everybody has better benefits. There's less poverty, there's less infant mortality, there are lower workplace mortalities, there's more retirement securities, seniors have better pensions and health care benefits, and they invest in more in education. Let me read quickly from this report from Moody's Analytics, which was prepared for the Illinois Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability. It begins, Illinois' business climate outshines its regional rivals. Illinois is indeed one of the country's most financially troubled states, but not because of public employee unions, nor the requirement that workers who choose not to join a union have to pay fair share fees. Instead, Moody said, the state's biggest headache and the greatest threat to economic growth are its budgetary woes, created over decades of fiscal mismanagement by previous governors and legislatures, resulting in a budget that has been unbalanced and unsustainable for many years. Moody's bottom line, Illinois has a lot of what businesses need to thrive: a huge talent pool of highly skilled workers, world-class universities, more money for investment, better transportation, airports with direct connections around the globe, and the country's top rail hub. So perhaps, it concluded, Illinois would be better served if we focus on budget solutions, not just spending cuts, but new revenues, rather than union bashing. Then the state might be on its way to a real turnaround, end quote. We just celebrated the birthday of one of the greatest freedom fighters that ever lived this month. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King gave a great speech in 1963 at the March on Washington. I have a dream. One of the greatest speeches probably ever given in American history. But you know, people so identify Dr. King with the I have a dream speech that some people merely see him as some casual dreamer. And that becomes easy to understand if you are younger than 47 years old. Just do me a quick favor. Everybody here who is under 47 years old or younger, would you please stand? 47 years old or younger. Feel good. Well, give a nice big round of applause to the future of the Lutheran Child and Family Services. It's good to know, thank you, young people. It's good to know that this work will continue on and on and on. So, but the reason I had y'all stand was to make a point. You know, the only thing that the people who stood know about Dr. Martin Luther King is what they've read or seen on old TV news clips, or what they heard on radio or recordings, or what they read in history books. Now, I was fortunate enough to be around when King was alive, and it was 47 years ago last April when Dr. Martin Luther King was gunned down as he stood on a balcony at the very young age of 39 years old. So as we reflect and commemorate on the life of Dr. Martin Luther King, let us remember that not only did he inspire us, but he marched for his beliefs. He sat in for his beliefs. In Alabama, he went to jail for his beliefs. In Chicago, he was hit in the head with a rock for his beliefs. And in Memphis, as he stood on a hotel balcony, he was assassinated for his beliefs. I'm merely pointing out to you that Dr. King was not just some idealistic dreamer. He fought every day to make his dreams a reality. He was a gallant fighter for civil rights, and we all know that there would not be a Civil Rights Act nor a Voting Rights Act without his leadership. But of course, I'm here to tell you about the very last fight that Dr. King fought before he died. It was the fight to unionize garbage workers in Memphis. That's the reason he was in Memphis in the first place, was to support underpaid city garbage workers who were demanding the city recognize their right to organize and join a union. You know, Dr. King said, too many people of goodwill have never connected bigotry with economic exploitation. They deplore prejudice, but they tolerate or accept economic injustice. But he concluded these two evils have a malignant kinship. He understood that you can't have racial justice without economic justice, and you can't have civil rights without labor rights. And thus, one definition of democracy is shared prosperity. The wealth of America should be for everyone, not just the wealthy few. We all do better when we all do better. I'm gonna jump here. I'm a firm believer in anti-poverty programs, but one of the most successful anti-poverty programs in the country has been the labor union movement. It's lifted more African Americans and people of color from poverty to the middle class than any other anti-poverty program. According to the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability report, the state of working Illinois, both African American and Latino union members have weekly wages that are 23% higher than their non-union counterparts. Women union members earn 26% more than women that are non-union. But these are not just statistics or numbers on a page. Let me tell you a story about an African-American man who left Tennessee to come to Chicago in the 50s, where he met and married an African-American woman from Alabama. They gave birth to 5 children. The oldest child died when he was 2 days old. They left 4 children. The father worked 2 to 3 jobs so he could provide for his wife and 4 kids. He moved furniture, he drove a delivery truck, he drove a cab, he delivered pizzas. He very seldom spent time with his kids, and he was always tired when he came home. He went to bed late, he got up and went to work early. But one day, a friend told him about a job at a factory on Costner Avenue in Chicago. And he was lucky enough to get that job. And because and he worked hard 8 hours every day, sometimes overtime, helping to produce one of the finest bicycles in the world, a Schwinn bicycle. And because it was a union job, he not only got a decent wage, he got health insurance benefits for himself and his family, and he began to spend more time with his wife and 4 children. As a matter of fact, he took his family every year to the annual company picnic where one of his sons would always win the eating contest, whether it was a pie, blueberry pie or cherry pie. And he gave his family a middle-class lifestyle, which allowed his oldest son to be the first one in the history of his family to ever attend college. That man was my dad, and I am his oldest son. By the way, it was my brother Fred who won all the eating contests, but all four of us got to attend college. Look, the building blocks of a middle-class lifestyle, allowing a father to spend quality time with his family, giving his children opportunities he never dreamed of. The right to live a meaningful and fulfilling life rested squarely on the back of a strong labor union contract. It's time we renewed our commitment to good jobs for everyone in America. The late Senator Paul Wellstone said, politics is not about power. Politics is not about money. Politics is not about winning for winning's sake. Politics is about improvement of everyday people's lives. The work that you all do every day. So let me suggest that we stop feeding into people's cynicism about your ability to serve your clients. Let us not also stop feeding into the cynicism about government's ability to serve the people that you serve. Because people are going to take their leadership cues from you. A little cynicism, healthy. But too much cynicism kills people's spirits and it kills people's hopes. If conservatives hate government in theory and liberals hate government in practice, we are never going to ever get anybody to want to pay any taxes. The reason that people don't like government is they don't see it helping them or their neighbors enough. There's a lot of talk in Springfield and in Washington, D.C. about values, but we have a values-based document in government. It's called the budget. The budget sets priorities. For where your treasure is, there shall your heart be also. And when government sets the wrong priorities, it's the people who pay the price. One of the single most important policies to retain and create jobs here in Illinois is to pass tax reforms that raise enough revenues to adequately fund public services, both those provided by the government and both those who depended on government support. So we need a fair, responsible budget with adequate revenues and no more cuts in vital services that have already been severely slashed in recent years. This is not about price. This is about priorities, and we need to change Illinois' priorities. You are the ones who can do it, and the time to do it is now. Now, I'm going to skip to what we need to do short term, long term, and short term. Someone said, William, don't preach the whole, if your preacher said, don't preach the whole Bible in one sermon. So I'm going to jump, I'm not going to do the whole speech. So we want to balance the budget, we need to change our tax structure. Long term, I recommend that we support a constitutional amendment for a fair tax with lower rates for folks with lower income levels and higher rates for those with higher incomes. It changes the way we fund education, we fund healthcare and human services. The federal income tax rates are graduated income tax. Long-term growth and stability is graduated income tax. By the way, 35 of the 42 states that have income taxes are graduated, as do the surrounding states that surround Illinois. There's a fair tax proposal. I think Senator Don Harmon is the sponsor in the Senate, and Kristen Mitchell is the sponsor in the House. To change it requires a constitutional amendment to be placed on the ballot by the legislature. Again, the good news is that it's popular. 70% of the voters would vote for it. We think that Illinois voters should have the opportunity on how they want to be taxed. And so we want to support a fair tax. Here's a tale of two Midwestern governors on two conflicting visions on how to run state government. Wisconsin, let's start there. Wisconsin has seen the largest middle-class decline of any state, a study finds. A new state-by-state analysis from the Pew Charitable Trust shows that Wisconsin experienced the single biggest decline in middle-class households in the country between 2000 and 2013. Mark Levine, who is the director of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee Center for Economic Development, said reversing the trend will require raising the minimum wage to a living wage and restoring union workers' ability to engage in collective bargaining. In Wisconsin, we've obviously gone the opposite way over the last 3 or 4 years, Levine said. Act 10 took away the collective bargaining rights for public employees, and the rate of unionization in the public sector combined by half in the state. And we just passed a right-to-work law, and right-to-work states tend to have lower wages. These sort of policies are pushing us in the wrong direction. That's Wisconsin under Governor Scott Walker. Now let's go to Minnesota in the Midwest. This billionaire governor taxed the rich and increased the minimum wage. Now his state's economy is one of the best in the country. When he took office in January 2011, Governor Mark Dayton inherited a $6.2 billion budget deficit and a 7% unemployment rate from his successor, Governor Tim Pawlenty. During his first 4 years in office, Governor Dayton raised the state income tax on individuals making over $150,000 and couples making over $250,000. He also raised Minnesota's minimum wage and passed a state law guaranteeing equal pay for women. And of course, the naysayers predicted that businesses would leave, but between 2011 and 2015, Governor Dayton added 172,000 new jobs to the economy. Minnesota has the 5th lowest unemployment rate at 3.6. Minnesota's working family have a median income of $8,000 higher than the U.S. average. Forbes ranked Minnesota the 9th best state for business, and now Minnesota has a $1 billion budget surplus. And then Governor Dayton, he said, well, let's put a third of that surplus into public schools. Now, Governor Dayton is not some class warrior driven by his desire to get back at the top 1%. He's a billionaire heir to the Target store's fortune. He was driven by a simple math. Raising taxes on those who can afford to pay will turn a deficit into a surplus. And in a state where education is a budget priority and economic growth is one of the highest in the nation, it only makes sense that more businesses would stay. So we hope you will join us in the fight for a fair tax. We can't do it here in Illinois because it's constitutionally prohibited. Everybody in the Constitution says everybody has to pay the same 3% tax rate. So we hope you'll join us in the long term. But however, we're looking for ways to balance the budget today and have a stronger economy. Let's start by maybe closing some corporate loopholes, or we can restore some of the 2014 income tax rates, which would save our services, or we could modernize our sales tax code like all of our surrounding states to include services as well as products. But one thing we are not going to do, we are not going to be held hostage to a personal political agenda that has nothing to do with the budget. Children and families are not bargaining chips that you push across the table to achieve your cynical political ends. Jumping around again. I told you about raising the minimum wage. These are some of the things that we can do. Number one, public policy that we can fight for in inequality. I'm going to go quickly to. 2 is to strengthen the movement for democracy that shifts political power away from the few to the many. On the front end, we need to support fair elections, public financing for elections, because too many people with wealth are using that wealth to influence public policy. Some people would say that they are using their wealth to purchase public policy outcomes that benefit them the most. The economy is working pretty good for them. The richest 10% own 70% of the wealth. Well, look at it this way. If we prepared lunch for the 100 of you that are here, and 10 people came and took 70 plates of food, what would we do? Come on, we know what we do. We would make Those greedy rascals bring that food back so everybody can eat. We need to end this system of legalized bribery dressed up as campaign contribution so everybody can have a share of the American dream. That's point one. Point two, on changing the political system, we need to be making it easier for people to have access to the ballot, not harder. Because voter suppression is real. Voter fraud is not, but voter suppression is. Indeed, 48 bills have either pending or become law in 18 states. These bills make registering to vote harder, reduce early voting, make it harder for students to vote, purges legitimate voters from the rolls, and voter ID laws. An unnecessary barrier to the vote which affects not only people of color voters, but the elderly, young people, and the poor. And so why do our opponents spend so much time trying to marginalize or minimalize or criminalize our votes? Why do they spend so much time trying to undercount and miscount and discount and don't count our votes? Because they know that voters in an election can contest with corporations for public control of wealth and resources. They know that winners of election gets to decide who gets how much of five things. Who gets how much education? Who gets how much income? Who gets how much health care? Who gets how much housing? And who gets how much justice? So our historical struggle for voting rights seeks to remove any and all unnecessary barriers that stand between us and our right to vote, whether it's the fight against poll taxes or literacy tests or inaccessible polling places or voter ID laws or longer lines at the polls or other schemes. So we must continue to fight for our democracy long term by eventually overturning the unjust Supreme Court decision that took away the Shelby County versus Holder decision that decreased some of the rights to vote and allowed voter suppression to become more prevalent in the country. The good news about Illinois is that we are not necessarily one of those states. We've been moving to expand, but I will say I'm a little bit disappointed that one of the ways that we moved to expand the right to vote and had overwhelming bipartisan support when it was passed, was recently vetoed by the governor. Now, what it is it's an automatic voter registration. In other words, once you go to the driver's license place or go to the state public aid office or any office, once you avail yourself of any services, unless you opt out, you are automatically registered to vote. And that bill was vetoed, and so it's going to come up again. So my recommendation is that, look, we need to be one America and one person, one vote. And let's just make sure that everybody has access to vote. Lastly, point 3. Where do we go from here? Community or chaos? Let me propose we choose community. Because we are to overcome America's mistrust of government and change America's priorities, we must firmly believe in our ability to organize for change, to organize for power, to organize for democracy. And if we are to achieve this just and noble goal, this can't just be that I'm to the left of America, you're to the right of America, and I'm righter, and I'm smarter, and I'm better, and I'm purer than you. We have to see ourselves in the center of people's lives, because that's where we live. That's where we are. It's not our politics. It's not us that's off center. It's our politics. So to close this battle, this battle should be bigger than partisan politics. Will we continue to reduce this battle to the current narrow frame that government benefits like human services are handouts for the less fortunate? Or Medicaid is a charity that we can't afford in a tight economy? Or it'd be nice to educate all of our children equally and adequately if we could afford it? Or will we right now today reaffirm the basic Illinois ideal that yes, we are responsible for ourselves, but we are also responsible for each other. I am my sister's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. We all do better. When we all do better, America is still the richest country in the world. Our economy is 10 times bigger than China, and we need to renew the basic contract between government and business and labor and the community that shares America's wealth and prosperity and puts its people back to work Because ultimately, the economy is not just something that happens to us, it's something that we build together based upon the values that we share.